Welcome to Storypower Masterclass on mastermind.com. Today is session 1, and I tried to do this as a live session, and for some reason it didn't work very well with my browser and my iPad, so I'm going to have to do a little technical background on that and figure out what the deal was. But I'm providing this video for lesson number 1 in the 6 lessons that go along with the Storypower Masterclass, where we help you develop a story into a very short, brief format that you can deliver to make transformation in other people's lives. This lesson, you'll notice in the homework down below or in the handouts down below, there are almost 2 pages worth of questions for you to answer to work through. So I'm just going to do a really brief, maybe 15 to 20 minute overview of that lesson so you have a better feel for what those questions are about and why you're answering and what they will accomplish for you as you present them. So the first thing I want you to understand is that when we talk about telling stories, the biggest challenge for a lot of people is telling stories in a way that is entertaining and relevant to the crowd that you're talking to. Many people who want to share their story simply believe of themselves, I have a fascinating story. I've lived through a tragic life. I've overcome so many obstacles and I hear that. I want to write my book. I want to speak from stages because I lived a tragic life and the world needs to know about it. And while I'm not going to say that that's untrue, I am going to say this. There are a lot of people who take the stage, take the platform, grab the microphone, write a book, put their information out there, and at the end of the day, what they've had to say was not relevant to most of the people they were talking to. What they did was market themselves really well to get in front of an audience, to get on a stage, to get a platform, to get their book sold, but a lot of people who got their hands on it because of the great marketing didn't necessarily see transformation in their life. Maybe that was because of just a broad targeted marketing. Maybe it was because the story, the speech, the presentation, the book wasn't written for a particular audience to begin with. If you've done any marketing, the kiss of death in marketing is I offer something for everyone. If you feel like what you have to offer is good for the whole world, then really, and by that I mean it can't affect change when it's a splatter and pray kind of a thing, and neither can your story. So I want you to walk through the acrostic for the word vision. And the acrostic that I've worked around with the word vision, I've been working on this for a little over 10 years. And the concept is built around this. If your vision follows this acrostic, then you know your vision will compel you even in the face of great odds. Everything in your life is going to seem to come against you the minute you get started doing something, especially if it's about other people. The minute you try to do something great, start a nonprofit, the world around you, start some great campaign to help others, and you're going to meet more resistance than you could ever imagine from friends, from family, from inside, even from yourself. You're going to fight change and resistance because it's hard. With the acrostic vision, vivid means I already see, not where I am, not just the journey along the way, while those are very important, but I see the end result. I see the lives that will be changed, and I see them in their better state. I see them new and improved, if you will. I see them transformed. Not just the journey, but I see them transformed. That's an important part of having a vision, to be able to see ahead so that you can be emotionally connected to the end result in its greatest form. So there are some questions there to help you ask yourself the question, not just what story, because I want to be able to be the superstar or be on the stage or pick up the mic or become a best-selling author, but what story will I tell because I see the people that I want to help and I see them in a better state. That's going to help me choose out of things in my life. As Dean says, not the soap opera of your life, not the whole thing of your life, but a scene. So think of a scene. I use the word incident rather than scene, but think of that incident in your life, the moment. The moment may have taken 10 or 15 minutes to occur. The lesson may have lasted you a lifetime, but if we can condense that down to 90 seconds or so, maybe 3 minutes tops, you have the ability to convey that story in the grocery store line, or while you're up at school, while you're standing at the gas. You deliver a story in a very brief period of time that could literally change the trajectory of someone's life. You could redirect and transform someone's life in that very short period of time. But only if you've already done the mental work to say, given who I'm talking to, where I'm at, what hope I plan to bring in their life, what change or transformation that I want them to experience. If you've already done all that work in your head, then you can, like pulling a specific arrow out of your quiver or grabbing a particular snowball or grabbing just the right knife to carve the fish versus cut the grapefruit open. Those are different utensils at a different moment for a different time. Then that's what the vivid part of your vision acrostic is about. It's about understanding who it is that I see in front of me and what transformation I want to bring about in their life. Now I can choose the right story to be able to do that. Not my whole story. An incident, will impact them the most. Next, I want you to think about inspiration. So vivid inspiration. Inspiration means this isn't just something I've done out of my imagination. Wandered away to make a bunch of money selling books or speaking from the stage or making CDs or DVDs or videos for YouTube. But I've really been called. I feel like what happened in my life was maybe a tragedy, maybe I've overcome something or I've accomplished something incredible. But the lessons that I learned along the way were not just for me. I'm inspired to take those to somebody else. It's not just about the inspiration that you will give to people. It's about what causes you to do what you're going to do. What causes you to communicate? What causes you to tell the story to begin with? Are you telling the story because you feel good telling it? Or are you telling the story because you know that other people will be better off when you're done? That's an powerful and impactful way to understand your story. I don't tell this because it makes me feel good. Well, it might. I tell this because I know it's going to make a difference in your life. It's going to change the direction of your life. And so I tell this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm trying to bribe you or convince you or cajole you, but I feel led by something greater than myself, something outside of me, to share with you this idea so that your life can be better. Next, significantly. So vivid inspiration significantly. Significantly isn't standalone, but it is important. And by standalone, I mean, we're not just looking for significance. While that's important, it's important for you to see yourself as significant in order for you to be significant. But what we're really looking for is significantly right here is an adverb that describes influence. So significantly influence. Influence is a verb. That's something we're going to do, but significantly influence. Not just momentarily make an impact on their life, not laugh or make them cry. A lot of people do that. Comedians do that. Great actors. But to cause them to be influenced enough that 25 years later they look back and go, I can remember the moment that I met so-and-so, that they told me that story. And in hearing that story, it changed my perspective of myself. It changed my perspective of life. It changed the way I look at things. That's what it means to significantly influence. And here's something that we know about significance. It's not success. They're different. Success might rise and fall with the ebb of the worth of your 401k or the value of your hard assets or your liquid assets. Success for someone who has it all and loses it all or has nothing and wins the lottery seems fluid. Significance is that loner who never moved out of the house he bought in 1935, but when he died 70, 80, 90 years later, everybody on the block knew him. Flat tire, he would help you change it. He would get down on the ground at 80 years old and help you break the lug nuts loose because he made a significant impact in the life of other people. Rich or not, he made an impact that will always be remembered. So when we talk about significantly influencing, we're not necessarily talking about making a whole lot of money, while that will probably be the result of making influence in people's lives. What we are talking about is not seeking after the money as the primary result, but seeking after the influence that lasts a lifetime. Significantly influencing. Now, what does it mean to influence? Well, it cause somebody to do something different, to quit smoking or stop drinking or change their diet or change the way they relate to the people in their lives, change their relationships, change their communication styles. All of these things are the result of influence. So if we want to significantly influence, then who are we going to significantly influence? Well, others. Because we've already influenced ourselves. That's why we're telling the story. We've already seen the transformation. We've already experienced the success. We've already overcome the tragedy. So now we want to pass that on. We want to significantly influence others. Now the question is, who's the others? When we think about others, and I want to of the homework, we'll talk a little more about the audience. I want you to ask some detailed questions about that. But I want you to understand that when you're telling your story, it's not about you. You're telling a story from an experience that you had. Otherwise, you're lying. And you don't need to be making up somebody else's stories or using somebody else's anecdotes and finishing with a punchline that everybody else has heard and most people delivered it better. I know you've experienced that. You've been in a place where the public speaker or the person on the stage tells a story and they may end with something like, I'm not even sure why I told you that story. I just thought you'd appreciate it, or I thought you'd enjoy it, or I hope. I've even heard people preface the story they're about to tell with, this really doesn't have anything to do with my speech, but I hear that you're supposed to start a speech with a good story. Why don't we make it relevant to the people you're talking to? And if you don't know who those others are because you don't have a vivid picture of them, of the individuals whose impact, and the better, if you don't know that up front, then the story you're telling probably isn't going to have any impact on them. You've just told them a story to be entertaining. Okay, if that's all you want to do, that's fine. But if you want to see an influence in somebody's life that changes the direction of their life, if you want to bring about true transformation, what you need is a story that's very pointed, very sharp, very well crafted, very intentional about the emotional journey you're going to bring them on and the end result that they will experience after that journey has completed or has run its course. And that all can happen in 30 to 90 seconds, 3 minutes tops. I'm telling you, it can be done. It can be done. Now, what are you going to influence them to? Vivid inspiration, significantly influencing others, nobility. Nobility. See, nobility is a place where they'll be better off having encountered you, that place where they'll feel better about themselves. They'll reach that status where they realize they were royalty all along. They should have been treated better. They should have had better experiences. They should have not been at the bottom of the barrel all of their life. And by hearing your story, not only do they see it's possible to get from the top of the mountain, but they also feel inspired and motivated and empowered to do so because you've pointed them in a direction to say, when I get to the call to action, when I get to, as Russell calls it, the framework, when I move from this scene, when I go from that hook to story to call to action, I'm going to move you in a direction that you're going to see that by doing what I ask you to do, as simple as it may be, it will profoundly change the direction of your life. And the story that I'm going to tell you isn't something I'm making an anecdote I've read somewhere, because I've walked through this journey and I want you to have that experience without having the experience. I want you to enjoy that knowledge without having to go through the crap. I want you to be better off than where you are now. Nobility. Vivid inspiration, significantly influencing others, nobility. That's why you have to have a vision. Yes, it's awesome to have a story. Yes, it's great to have good stage presence. And yes, it's important to be able to tell a story that causes people to laugh and to cry and to move them emotionally. That's powerful. But if you do that haphazardly, you run the risk of influencing people to go somewhere they're not ready to go yet. Or, worse off, killing yourself on the stage, in the book, on the platform, in the video, because what you've said was important to you, but it's not relevant to them. So when we start talking about audience, there are a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. Consider their education level. If you're speaking to elementary students, you know for a fact that you've got to speak differently than you would to college professors. When you're speaking to people who are in a specialized knowledge field, whether it's being a physician or being an auto mechanic or being in electronics, there are words that fit within that realm, code words that fit within that realm. If I use a word like pedantic or eschatology or gastrointestinal reflux, some go, oh, I know exactly what it is. I've heard it enough. Some of them go, a what? A flux capacitor? Is that a real thing? Not knowing the industry well enough to understand the specialized terms can cause you to speak in a way where you think you're being more intelligent, more educated, and you're not. Misusing, mispronouncing, misidentifying, misdescribing words, terms, or phrases causes people to question your credibility. And as the old phrase says, it takes years to build trust and only seconds to destroy it. If you're telling stories and they include, they're just woven in there, a word or two that you mispronounce, misapply, you've destroyed your trust. It seems like a small thing, but it only takes a moment for somebody to go, this person's an idiot. I don't even know why I'm listening to their story. And it may be one word at the beginning of your entire presentation. Before you've gotten to the lessons that you've learned, before you've gotten to the action you want them to take, you've mispronounced a word that to them is important, and it causes them to judge you. 9 times out of 10, the audience wants you to succeed. The audience wants you to move forward. The audience wants to gain success and opportunity from you. That's why they're here, especially if they paid to be here. But what they need from you is to know that they can trust you subliminally and consciously so that they can follow the path that you're taking them on. If they can't trust you to take them there because you've caused question of your own credibility, then it's going to be like pulling a train uphill with flip-flop sandals on. You're not going to get any traction, and you're going to work 3 times as hard, and every step you take is going to be going backwards. So be cautious about your specialized language. Be cautious about generational gaps. The age of the audience that you're talking to doesn't seem to be that important, but ask a 20-year-old what a phone book is, and you're going to get a deer in the headlights look. Ask my grandmother what TikTok is, and you're going to get the same look. Phone book, TikTok. What's the relationship? Relevance is the relationship. And if you don't think that through with your story, you may be telling a story that the real life experience of it was enormous, but it was generationally oriented. And in that generation, it makes a huge difference. But to the next generation, if you don't open an avatar window and allow them to come in and see from where they are, from the way they view life, from the way they understand life, from the way they experience life, you lose the power of the metaphor or even the moment. So make sure that you're age and generationally relevant to the audience that you're talking to. Demographics, race, origin, religion, education level, income level even, cultural. What part of town did they grow up in? People say, I grew up in New York. Yeah, what part of New York? Well, I don't know New York from Manhattan, honestly. I don't. I heard there's 5 boroughs there. I don't know anything about the 5 boroughs. I've heard people talk about Brooklyn as one of the 5 boroughs. And again, I don't know one from the other, but I know from Brooklyn. And if you just say from New York, roll their eyes at you like, what part of New York? I say I'm from Texas, and people are like, from Texas. No, I don't. I don't talk with a southern drawl like some of my kids do even. And a lot of people directly relate that southern drawl with an intellectual level, with a level of education. I didn't intentionally avoid it. I just never picked it up. It's not my thing. Never has been. But when I speak around the world, when I go to the Congo, there are certain expectations. There are things that you cannot say, hand gestures you cannot use. You may have to put them in your pockets to make sure that you don't accidentally use them. The same thing in Brazil and Cuba and Belgium and various places in Europe that I've been. The way that you speak to them, the tone, the eye contact, all of those things are very important. We know that in communicating. But if you're not intentional in the way that you craft your story, you can lose a lot in the translation. I'll give you a perfect example of that. I spoke for a group of media people that were in Miami. Now, the guys that invited me to come and speak were bilingual, and they said this is primarily a Central American Hispanic group of people, but we will have a translator for you on the stage. Awesome. First time I'd ever worked with a translator in a large public presentation. There were probably 300 or 400 people in the audience. At one point in one of the stories that I was telling, I said we had ice cream and cake and water. And the translator followed that train of thought. Watermelon, ice cream, cake, ants. Oh yeah, those little bugs that like to eat all your sweet stuff and crawl around on your feet and bite you when you're having a picnic outdoor. And so she translated ice cream, watermelon, cake, ants as bugs. And after a very quick pause, I say we had watermelon, ice cream, cake, ants, and some uncles too. And after the pause, when I said and some uncles too, she said, no, not bugs, like mujeres, women. And the people in the audience who were bilingual already understood the joke, and now she was trying to play it both ways and didn't know where to go. That was my bad. I didn't write that in a way that translated across both languages. I was working with an interpreter not too long ago who's from Honduras, and he said, the phrase here in America to say you must be joking is, you're just pulling my leg. He said, when you say that in South America or Central America, they look at you like you have 4 heads. Like, why would you pull on someone's leg? That doesn't even make sense. Are you talking about tripping them? Or or wrestling with them or trying to make fun of them. What do you mean pulling their leg? Why would you do that? They don't understand that it's a colloquialism for a joke. So when you think about your audience and you're writing these specific things into your story, it's really easy to, you might spin a yarn and say, I was sitting with my granddad, the little kids do at the dinner table at Grandpa's house. We're all too short for the table, so we all sit on giant phones. He was pulling our leg about, if you've got the wrong phone book, you can't reach the table at all. That whole joke is lost on someone from South America under the age of 20. They've never seen a phone book, and they don't know why you would be pulling somebody's leg to begin with. Now, the joke may be very relevant to the course of your story, but if the joke or the line isn't relevant to the audience who's listening, it's not relevant at all. So when we talk about having a vivid inspiration that's significantly influencing others' nobility, thinking about who they are and where you're going to take them in life is more important to crafting your story than the event. Choosing which event to talk about, which life lesson to place behind it, and the specific words that you use are so important. You can't just tell your life story. You've got to find the moments in your story that are relevant to the people you're talking to, and that might mean halfway through your speech realizing story number 3 that I have written into the speech, I need to put that arrow back and grab another arrow. I need to have a different snowball or a different knife from the kitchen. You don't fillet a fish with the same knife most of the time, or peel potatoes with the same knife that you would carve a turkey with. And know in your arsenal to use at which time is absolutely critical in the decision-making process. So I want you to take those things into consideration. And then finally, you'll see there your call to action. Again, all of this is in the notes in lesson number 1. And yes, this is all lesson number 1. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So in the same way that Dean talks about the scene, and he talks about the hook, and then the story, and then the call to, you'll see that call to action is the primary part of the story. If you don't begin, as Stephen Covey says, with the end in mind, then the story that you'll choose to put in front of the call to action may not actually bring about the action that you want to happen. It won't lead them down the emotional path to get them to do what you need them to do to get the transformation that they want. But if you don't know what the transformation that you want them to experience is, if you don't know where you want them to be when the journey is over, you can't offer them a call to action to get it. And if you can't offer them a call to action to get it, it's probably because the story that you're telling seems relevant to you, was important to you, it was an experience for you, but it's not related to the desired result that they're after. Walking through this process is the groundwork that allows you to select, craft, and deliver an incident that will have significant relevance in the life of the people that you're sharing it with. So I want you to take some time to do this homework. I will record another session just like this. The live didn't work, but hopefully by the time we get to 5 and 6, we'll be able to do the live and you'll be able to interact with me. So I encourage you to be a part of that. I want you to join in and share your stories so that we can do peer review together. And I hope that you'll get a lot out of this lesson and a lot out of this mastermind. I'm Loren Norris with Storypower, and you've been a part of the Storypower Masterclass. Have a blessed day.